final properties. So the first type of matrix, special type of matrix, is what is known as symmetric laminate. Laminate that is symmetric in both geometry and material properties about the mid surface are known as symmetric. So if I have mid plane about a lamina, and over and above that lamina, if the lamina, different laminas are exactly the same, thickness is exactly the same, that is known as a symmetric laminate. A symmetric laminate predicts the absence of membrane bending coupling, meaning that if I have a symmetric laminate, then the normal traction has contribution only from the normal strains. There is no contribution of curvature to the normal strains. If you remember a few slides, if we can go back, we had discussed this slide. In this, so if this matrix is 0, it means that there is no relationship between B11 is multiplied by this term. It contributes to the N1. So N1, N2, N3 have no contribution from the curvature terms. Similarly, M1, M2, M3 have no contribution from the normal strain terms for a symmetric laminate. Okay, this is rather interesting. If you have a situation like this, then we have seen that calculating the stresses in every plane is also straightforward. The second type of special laminate we have is known as symmetric cross ply. Symmetric cross ply means we are only using 0 and 90, and symmetric is symmetric, and like we have discussed in our previous slide. If you have a symmetric laminate which also is cross ply symmetric, then you will see that the B matrix is 0. Also A16, A26, D16, D26 will also come out to be 0. A16 depends on the Q16 term, and Q16 will come out to be 0 if M and N are, if either of M and N are 0. Remember, if you remember a few weeks ago, we had derived the expression for how to transform the Q matrix from one coordinate axis system to the other. And the Q16 was a function of M cube into N. So if either M is 0 or N is 0, then the Q16 term will be 0. M and N are the direction cosines. So because of that, most of the terms will come out to be 0 if I have a symmetric cross ply. And even if it is angle cross ply, you can get the same result. Okay. The third type of special, the third special type of layup sequence is what is known as antisymmetric laminates. Antisymmetric laminate is not the same as unsymmetric laminate. Okay. Antisymmetric means the layup is symmetric, but there is a negative sign over and above. For example, if you look at this bottom figure, it is symmetric about the mid plane, but we have put minus theta plus theta plus theta minus theta. Symmetric, but the sign of the angle is different. So it is not, so you have 30 degrees both above and below the center line, but one can be minus 30 and the other can be plus 30. Such layup sequences are known as antisymmetric laminates. Okay, there are three laminates: symmetric, antisymmetric, unsymmetric. This is antisymmetric. If you have antisymmetric cross ply, meaning you have 0 and 90, but they are not symmetric. So we have 0, 90, 0, 90, not 0, 90, 90, 0. In that case, the ABD matrix will look like this. That there are some terms which will come out to be 0, but the B matrix is not 0. Okay. After the class, I will strongly advise you to try to verify whatever A, B, and D matrix results I am showing. Please verify that it is actually true. Okay. And if I have antisymmetric angle ply, means it is some angle theta not equal to 0 or 90. In that case also my ABD matrix, the B matrix is not 0, but most of the terms are 0. Being able to decide the laminate sequence and make some specific terms of the ABD matrix 0 and some specific terms as non-zero has several advantages when we are trying to tailor the property. So these are, in some exotic applications, these things might be very interesting. Okay. And the final type of laminate is what is known as the unsymmetric laminate. Unsymmetric means there is no particular order. In that case, B is not equal to 0. Okay. So any questions about symmetric, unsymmetric, antisymmetric? Are the three different types of symmetry clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, is it possible to make a quasi-isotropic laminate? Meaning I will have a lamina which is transversely isotropic, but I will place multiple layers of lamina and try to see if they are quasi-isotropic. Quasi-isotropic means properties in different direction is same. So a quasi-isotropic laminate can be obtained by having incrementally increasing theta and making it symmetric. So I start with 0, 60, 120 and make it symmetric. Okay. Or I have 0 and then I go plus 45, minus 45, plus 90, and then I go, and then if I make it symmetric, you will see that A11 will be almost equal to A22. If A11 is equal to A22, under normal loading, normal traction, my laminate will behave in an isotropic manner. These such laminates are known as quasi-isotropic laminates. It is, can anybody tell me why we are using the term quasi and not saying only isotropic? It is not isotropic, it is quasi-isotropic. What is the meaning of the word quasi? Anybody? When you do a tensile test, you say that the loading rate is quasi-static. What is the meaning of the word
It's
quasi?
not exactly isotropic, but close to isotropic.
Huh.
Sir,
In
it
this
is not
that is
exact.
correct. So, in this context, we are saying it is quasi-isotropic because my laminate will behave in an isotropic manner only when normal tractions are applied. If you apply bending load, then it is no longer isotropic. Now, can anybody tell me why in bending load it is not isotropic? If I have a layup which is 0, 60, 120 and make it symmetric, then A11 is equal to A22. But I am saying D11 not equal to D22. Because D11 and D22 depend on the layup sequence. Just by saying 0, 60, 120, it is not the same as 120, 60, 0. But the value of A11 will be equal to A22. Or in other words, imagine that 0, 60, 120 is in a coordinate axis system, 0 in a coordinate axis system such that 0 degree is parallel to the x-axis. But what happens if I twist my coordinate axis system by 60 degree? Then my layup system becomes 60, 120, 180 or 60, 120, 0. Now, or in other words, my layup sequence is changing as I change my coordinate axis system. Now, because of that, my D will continuously change. So depending on the coordinate axis system, my D matrix is changing, which means that it is not isotropic. But A11 is equal to A22, so it is symmetric about that plane. So we call such laminates quasi-isotropic. Very important to keep in mind that quasi-isotropic laminates will show isotropy only if normal traction is applied. If you apply bending load, they are not isotropic. The strength is not isotropic. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, the strength might or might not be isotropic. Huh? That is also important to keep. Now, let me make a blank slide and I want to show you something. Now, imagine that you have a beam which is shaped like this. This is the cross section, okay? And if you apply load like this, what do you think will happen? This is a long beam, this is the cross section, and I'm applying a point load like that. What do you think will happen?
The twisting.
It will twist. I'm applying bending load, but it can still twist. Now, to avoid the bending, twisting, what do I have to do? What should my load pass through?
Shear center.
Shear center. So maybe it is like this. Okay. Now, let us imagine I have an aeroplane wing or any other practical application. Let us think it is something like this. Now the load will depend on its application. I cannot make sure that the loading will always pass through the shear center, can I? In a real life, can I control that the loading will always pass through the shear center?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No. So what is going to happen? This is a wing. Wing is quite tall, quite long. And if we apply a point load, what do you think will happen? The wing can also twist. The wing will bend. That is straightforward. I mean, we are looking at this part of the airplane. So this is my fuselage. This is my aeroplane wing. And the bending load is somewhere here. So my aeroplane wing can bend. It bends sometimes. You can, in fact, while flying also, you can see this bending might happen. But we are saying that twisting can also happen, correct? And is
Yes, sir.
twisting desirable?
No, no.
Twisting is not desirable. So if I make this wing out of an aeroplane, out of aluminum, then what do I have to do? I have to add what are known as stiffeners. So I will add some stiffeners like this. So they are now not going to twist, but I have to put extra stiffeners. Now the question is, can I remove this bend twist correlationship by designing a special layup sequence? Is that possible? Let's go back a few slides again. Figure. Out of this, look at this carefully and tell me which terms relate to bend and twist coupling. Anybody?
Sir, D26.
D16 and D26. So now the challenge is, can we design a laminate sequence such that D16 and D26 will tend to 0? If I can do that, then I don't need to put the stiffeners. Or the stiffeners I will still put, but they are not so critical. Let us see if that is possible. Stiffness coefficients D16 and D26 are responsible for the coupling between Mx, My and Kxy. Okay, so it is the coupling between bending and twist. If I have a one ply laminate, then A16, A26, D16, D26 are 0, which we have seen. This relationship you can also approximately satisfy if you choose a layup sequence such that it is θ1, θ2 repeated over large number of times, it is M, and it is symmetric. If you are able to do this, then you can actually prove that the value of D16 and D26 will start to tend to 0. For example, if I make a laminate which has θ1, θ2, θ1, θ2, and then symmetric, θ2, θ1, θ2, θ1. And if I calculate my Aij and Dij, then I see that Aij is tending to 0 and Dij tends to Aij into T square by 12, which will also tend to 0. So if we can use a layup sequence like this, then we are then we are able to get rid of the shear and twist coupling. Okay. Again, try to confirm if you are getting this result. You know how to calculate the ABD matrix. This is something for you to try and do. Now, this is a very interesting result, because when people say that why do we use composite materials, the most common answer is because it has high specific stiffness, it has high strength. But this is an example of another property which is known as, we can tailor the properties. Even if the stiffness was not high, if the strength was not high, I am able to design a material where there is no shear and twist coupling. This tailorability is also a very, very important reason why we use composite materials. In our case of, in the example that we just discussed, the aeroplane case, even if the stiffness of my composite is the same as aluminum, I will still have advantage because I am able to tailor and I am able to get rid of the twisting and the shear coupling. This is sometimes when we say composites are tailorable, this is one very classic example of that. So is this clear? Any questions? Okay, so this brings me to the end of the different mathematical formulations that we have done about the classical lamination theory. We will still look at some more special cases in the next class, like what happens if I have a sandwich structure? Is there a simple way to put the effect of thermal loads? But for simple thin lamina and elastic case, we are completing the classical lamination theory. And by far, this is one of the most commonly encountered problem in real life, how to design the layup sequence, what is the calculations behind this. We have learned how to calculate the ABD matrix. For symmetric laminate, how to calculate the equivalent properties of the laminate. We have also learned how to calculate stress in each layer. And finally, we have also learned what are the different type of special laminates and which terms of the ABD matrix we can tend to zero. Okay. Now, based on all of this, there are some design rules which the industry employs. Let us one by one discuss those design rules. Okay. So the first design rule is that unidirectional laminates are somewhat fragile. If you have a laminate where all the layers are in 0°, then it will become very fragile, because even if there is slight off axis load, it will start to break. So even if you are sure that the laminate is going to be subjected to uniaxial load, you are still advised to have at least few layers in 90 or in some off axis direction, just to hold everything together. This is rule number one. Rule number two is, if you know that your laminate is subjected to mostly shear loads, then you are advised to use plus minus 45° laminates. This is obvious because we have seen that the shear modulus was going like this. At 45°, it was peaking. If you have thin laminate structures, even if it is under pure axial load, it will have tendency to buckle. To avoid that, you have to put some hoop fibers, or you have to put some 90° layup to avoid buckling. The fourth is, constant angles are difficult to maintain. Okay. Why they are difficult to maintain? No matter how accurately you cut it, you are going to make some error. Constant angle means that, let's say I will tell you that I want 15 layers of 20° or 30°, and you start cutting it manually or using machine. You will see that each of the 20 layers will have slight discrepancy. So you wanted 20 layers of 30, but there might be some 29, some 31s, etc., etc. No matter how accurate, even if you employ a machine for cutting it, you are going to have difficulty in maintaining constant angles, because sometimes during the manufacturing process, some of the fibers might be slightly at an incline. Okay. You have to account for the variation in your analysis. You cannot do an analysis simply saying I have used 030, so this is my ABD matrix for 030. If there were many 30-degree layers, maybe some are 29, maybe some are 31. So that's some uncertainty you have to account for. And it is in your advantage to use limited number of angles. Rather than saying 0, 1, 2, 3, dot, 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 10, it's better to use 0, 5, 10. As far as possible, try to limit the number of angles. And keep in mind that there will be some variation in the actual orientation of different ply. You have to account for that. Differences between plies should be minimized. So 0, 45, 90, minus 45. We are jumping 45 degrees per layer rather than 0, 90, 45, minus 45. Can you tell me why? What is the meaning of interlaminar shear stress?
So the stresses between the two layers
Between two
immediately.
layers, that is, yes, if you suddenly start jumping, so the difference between properties of 0 and 90 is going to be much more than 0 and 45. So you want to layer by layer change the properties, but you want to change it incrementally. You don't like sudden jumps. If you have sudden jumps, then you are going to have interlaminar shear stresses that will cause the strength of your laminate to come down. Next, non-symmetric or unsymmetric laminates hold their shape only at cure temperature. They will warp. Even if you make an open section and if you put it in an autoclave, they are going to warp because of the B matrix. So you have to use symmetric laminates as far as possible. Otherwise, you will never be able to make a flat plate. Even if you have to make a flat plate, it will come out to be slightly curved if your structure, if your laminate sequence is non-symmetric. Okay. The next rule is quasi-isotropic planes are isotropic for in-plane stiffness only. Strength and bending stiffness are not isotropic. You have to keep this in mind. If you want a isotropic in bending, then you have to think of some other layup sequence. You cannot go for your quasi-isotropic ply sequence. And the final point, which is most important, is that accurate material properties are not always available for composites. Generating a complete set of composite data performance is extremely expensive. Analysis of composite requires 4 elastic constants and 5 strength constants. So you have to do 5 different tests and we have to repeat each test 5 times to get some mean and standard deviations. Therefore, a very important criteria for practical application is whether or not the property data is available. You might have a new material which might have fantastic properties, but people will be reluctant to use the new material till the complete property data is easily obtained. This is, I mean, in classroom, in academic settings, we don't think about this, but this is the ground reality. So you have to be careful about this. All of the design laminate rules I have copied from this website. This website has lots of interesting articles about different type of composite materials, what are the manufacturing process, etc., etc. If you are free and if you are interested, I strongly encourage to go through this website. Okay, so this brings me to the end. Any questions? Any questions about classical lamination theory in general?
Sir, in this theory, we have not accounted the stresses that are developed between the layers or the laminates.
No. We will
So,
do that.
in the failure theory, how we are going to, how we are going to incorporate this?
That usually what happens now, you have what is known as intralaminar damage and interlaminar damage. Intralaminar damage means inside a single lamina how damage is happening. Intralaminar means the damage between two layers. Intralaminar is a difficult problem to solve analytically. So usually we try to do FE based analysis where we have equations analysis for damage inside a lamina. Outside a lamina, we usually rely on FE. But we will briefly touch on these topics. In a first mechanics of composite course, intralaminar stresses will be hard. Okay, you can imagine the situation like this. Let us say you want to open a door. Okay, there are two options. One is you have, and the room and the door is locked. So you have two options. Option number one is that you have the key to that room, you open it using a key. Option number two is you don't have the key. So what will you do? You will break open the door. So you can imagine FE analysis as the breaking open of the door. Analytical solution is trying to open the door with a key. So as we go deeper and deeper into the subject, we have more and more keys. But within our first mechanics of composites course, interlaminar shear will not go in too much detail, but we will touch it. Thank you for bringing this up.
Okay, sir.
Anything else? About classical lamination theory, anything?
Sir, regarding the warping of that non-symmetric non-symmetric composite, like only under loading they warp, right? If
No.
we don't,
They are going to warp also due to the residual stresses. Now, when you are trying to, when you put it in an oven or if you put it in an autoclave, it is going to get subjected to temperatures.
Right.
The coefficient of thermal expansion is going to be different for different layers in the global coordinate axis system.
Right.
That will cause the warping.
Okay, they'll have some residual stresses because of which they'll warp. Okay.
Yes.
Sir, what if we keep the laminate into a die and cool it down? I mean,
then you will have some residual stresses. It will not warp. You will still get a flat plate, but there are going to be residual stresses inside.
okay, sir.
I mean, there might be some ways of reducing that residual stresses, because if for some applications I absolutely need a unsymmetric laminate sequence and it is a very critical application, there might be ways, but this is something that you normally avoid. Okay, anything else? Yes, any other question? How is your term project going on? Have you programmed the ABD matrix?
Yes, sir.
And did you check with some answers in some textbooks that it is working? Please make sure to benchmark it.
So the problem you gave in the side, I checked with that.
Okay, so tomorrow we have no class. Tomorrow there is convocation and all classes have been suspended. We will see on Thursday. We'll see each other on Thursday, but we have about 20-30 minutes left. So how about, let us look at, since we are talking about FE, let us look at different features of FE and how we can use it for Is the date for your mid-semester break out? When is the mid-semester break?
So from 27th.
27th to?
27th to 3rd March.
So we'll miss 2 more classes, is it? 2nd and 3rd, there is no class. That is problematic. So we'll plan something. Yeah, a little bit of a crisis. Okay, so is the Abaqus window visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you open Abaqus, it looks something like this. In the institute, we have access to 6.14. We also have access to 6.21, which is the latest version. Okay, and there are some minor differences in 6.14 and 6.21, new features. It is slightly faster, etc., etc. But you can use either of the two or both, depending on what you want to do. Okay, so in the context of composite materials, we use FE software for two things. The first is to validate the models that we have built. That is, especially relevant in the context of micromechanics. Like for example, we learned about the Cox formulation. So I made a derivation. How can I prove that my derivation is correct or not? Or how can I prove that the assumptions that I have made, are they reasonable or not? So for that, one way is to use finite element. So how will we do it is we will build the microstructure that we have decided to solve. Abaqus or any FE software will try to calculate the stresses at every point, and we can calculate the effective properties or stress at a point, whatever, and benchmark that with our analytical solution. So that is one utility of using FE in the context of mechanics of composites. This is mostly limited to an academic setting. In a university, when you are doing your MTech or you're doing your PhD, you are doing research, this is the context that we use FE. This is one. The second is to use FE analysis for your macro analysis. So micro analysis, you can write a code. Meso analysis, classical lamination theory, you can write a code. But how will you do a component level simulation? That you will use finite element. And most finite element software these days have classical lamination theory inbuilt inside them. So you just have to give your layup sequence, build your complex 3D part, and run a stress analysis. It will calculate layer by layer what is going on. So these are the two utilities. And more new features are coming where extensive detailed damage we are able to run in. We are able to model and we are able to analyze. So not only linear, but also non-linear composite we can model in an FE software. Okay. So this is Abaqus, as I said, but ANSYS also you can use. For some reason, ANSYS is more popular with the fluid mechanics community. Abaqus is more popular with the solid mechanics community. Now, to build a model completely, there are some steps that you need to do. If I click on this, I can see part, property, assembly, step, interaction, load, mesh, optimization, job, visualization. So these are the different tasks that I have to do to complete my analysis. So what is the meaning of part? So and every time you go to a different module here, these things will change. Okay, like for example, if I go to assembly, it has changed. If I go to step, it will again change. And so the part is you actually have to draw the part that you want to analyze. It could be simple, it could be complex, it could be anything, but Abaqus only has simple drawing capabilities. If your part is very complicated, then perhaps you should draw the part in SolidWorks or other software which has been designed for drawing and sketching and export it to Abaqus. That is allowed and that is relatively straightforward. So let us draw a shape. So this is create a part. So I click on this. I have to name, let's name it part 1. Then he'll ask me, is it 3D, is it 2D, or is it axisymmetric? And is it solid shell wire point? So I want solid and I want extrusion. Extrusion means I will draw the shape in the XY and pull it in the Z direction. Revolution would be that I would draw one face and rotate it by some degree. So extrusion, continue. Then I have different options for drawing. I can draw by connecting different lines, circle with a center and perimeter, rectangle, ellipse with center and perimeter, tangent, blah, blah, so many things. Let us draw a circle, a square. So it says pick a starting corner for the rectangle. So I say let it be 0, 0. Pick the opposite corner for the rectangle. Let's put it 2, 2. My rectangle has been created. In the rectangle, let's put a circular hole. So let's put center 1, 1. And diameter will be 1, 1.25, any point in the perimeter. So it becomes something like this. And then you click cross and then you say done. Now, how deep do you want it to be extruded? Let's put 20. I say okay. So my part has been created. Now, these 4 buttons that you see at the top are for changing the view. So if I click on this one, then it will go up and down. The second one is for rotating to see from all angles. Okay. The third one is for zooming, and the fourth one is also for zooming. So if I want to see only this part, I can choose this part and it gets zoomed. And the fourth one is auto fit. So my part is created. Now let's create a second part. Let's call this part 2 center extrusion again. This time I will only make a circle. So let's put it, center is 1, 1, radius is 1, 1.25. Done. And 20. So my part is created. Okay, so I have created two parts. One is a cuboid with a circular hole, and this is the circle. Now, second is property. We have to now design the property. We have to input the property. So select the first one, create material. Let's call this fiber. Now you will see that below every detail there are large number of options. So general, there are so many options. Mechanical is usually what we are interested in. So let us have a look at the different options, different things that we can do. So if I choose, I want to do elastic analysis, then it'll ask me what type of elastic. Is it elastic, hyper elastic, etc., etc. And then we'll say, okay, let's choose elastic. Even under elastic, is your material isotropic, or do you want to input the 9 engineering constants, or is it a lamina, or is it orthotropic, is it anisotropic? All those options are there. Let us choose engineering constants. Then I have to put E1, E2, E3, do1 to all the 9 constants. If I choose orthotropic, then I have to put the stiffness matrix, all the 9 terms. If I say anisotropic, then I need to put all the 21 constants that we have discussed to completely define the stiffness of an anisotropic material, and so on and so forth. So let's go for isotropic. I will put it the property of glass fiber. Now, if you watch carefully, we are not putting any units here, because Abaqus is doing all the calculations independent of the unit. It is the responsibility is on us to make sure that all our units are consistent. So if I'm writing my modulus as 72,000 and I know that it is megapascal, then I have to make sure that the dimensions are in millimeters, that the load is in Newton, because 1 Newton per millimeter square is megapascal. That Abaqus is just looking at numbers and solving differential equations in the background. It does not care what is the unit, what is happening, whether it is physical, non-physical, nothing. So we'll say okay. Similarly, you can do thermal analysis. There are different electrical, magnetic, other, so many things are there. Let's do this. Okay. Now let's create a second material. We'll call this matrix. Isotropic. If I write, let's say 3 gigapascal, then I know it is 3 gigapascal, but Abaqus is going to assume it is 3 megapascal. So we have to write 3000 megapascal, not 3. Okay. So now the property has been created. The way things work in Abaqus is that you create the materials, you create the parts, but you cannot directly assign the material to the part. You have to create a section, and in the section, other than the material properties, you can create other details also. So let's look at what happens here. I click on sections, right click, create. So it will ask me, is your material homogeneous, or are you looking at plane strain, or is it a composite material? If I say composite material, it will ask me what is the layup sequence, what is the orientation, what is all those different details. The classical lamination theory will come into the picture. And if I say no, I want a homogeneous material, let's continue. It will ask me which material. Let's say fiber. I say okay. Similarly, I will create another section for the matrix. Continue. Matrix. Okay. Section is where we have to add all the details about if it is a composite, what is the layup sequence. If it is a beam, then I have to say what is the profile. I mean, what is the shape of the beam? Is it a box? Is it pipe, circular, I, L, T, arbitrary, generalized? What is the cross section of my beam? All of this detail goes into the section. So section is where you assign the material properties, but you also assign other section properties. It could be the cross section of your beam, or it could be your layup sequence. And we can, I mean, depending on what you choose, you have, let's say I choose I and I say continue. Then it will ask me what is B2, what is H, all the details I can put here. I will actually draw a straight line, but if it is a beam, then all the properties of the section will be assigned. Similarly, if I choose a composite, I will just draw one layer. I will just draw one layer, but the different layers, I will have only the laminate. The different lamina are going to be put here, where you will write orientation angle in degree, what it is, how many integration points do you want, what is the relative thickness of every layer, etc., etc. You can do. Material properties you have to add. Is it, which property should be assigned to which layer? So all of that will happen here. And then the classical lamination theory is inbuilt inside this. We will not do this. No. So I have created the part. I have created the materials. Now I also have created the section. Now let us assign the section to the part. So I have to go to part 2. There is this option section assignment. Right click, create. So this is fiber. It says select the sections, regions to be assigned a section. So I say continue, done. And then this is section 1. Okay. If the color changes to green, it means that the material properties have been assigned successfully. Now let's go to part 1. Same thing I will do. I will choose. Done. This is section 2. Okay. Okay. One thing I forgot. If you go to the materials, let us say create. You will see this. Look, damage for fiber reinforced composites. This is the Hashin damage. So we will learn in detail about these damage criteria, how to implement, whether and what is the mathematics behind it, whether it is accurate or not accurate later in our course. We will learn a large number of damage theories. Inside Abaqus, only one failure theory has been implemented. That is the Hashin damage criteria. So I will say, I don't want just to make. So keep this in mind. This is important. We will come back to Hashin damage later in our course. Cancel. So I have created the parts, I have created the property, I have assigned the property. Now is the assembly. Assembly means what is the relative location of the different parts. So in this, if you select this, you will say I want it to be independent. I want the two parts. You can actually have as many times as possible. So you can have a structure which has n number of part 1s, n number of part 2s. You will draw the part 1, part 2 only once, but you can copy it and you can repeat it several times here. So I have, let's say, the fiber and the matrix. Now we must put it in the correct position relative to one another. So this is translate the instance. Select the instance to translate. So this done. Select the starting point. It is the center. Select the end point. It is the center. And I say, is the position okay? I say okay. So I have assembled it. The assembly usually is going to be complex. This is a simple part with only two parts. But it could be much, much more. So you have to assemble it. Okay. Now, after assembly, but also keep in mind that assembly just means that you have assigned the relative position of one part with respect to the other, nothing else. Whether the part is allowed to penetrate into the other, whether it is allowed to slide, what are the degrees of freedom, nothing has been done at this stage. That we will do later. The next is step. In the step, you will tell Abaqus what type of analysis are you trying to do. So let us click on the first one. Then it will ask me, there are so many options. It could do a coupled temperature displacement analysis for me. It could do a dynamic implicit. It could do a geostatic, heat transfer, mass diffusion, static, viscous. Most of the times we will choose the default option, which is the static general. You say continue. Then it will ask me, how many increments do you want? And which type of solver? So all these are for advanced users. You just say okay. Especially when you are doing a nonlinear analysis, all these things will become important. But for now, you don't need to bother. You say okay. So we have created the part, property has been assigned, it has been assembled, and also we have intimated the software what is the type of analysis we want to do. So now the next is interaction. Interaction means how is one part going to interact with the other? Is the circular cylinder allowed to penetrate inside my cylinder, or is it allowed to slide, or is the addition between the two perfect or not? So that we have to tell the software at this stage. So we will choose this one. It says create a constraint. So let us create a constraint. Tie means that there is perfect addition between the fiber and the matrix, or the cylinder and the cube in this case. So and there are lots of other options. Again, in general case, we'll choose tie. So tie, continue. It says choose the master type. Master type means so now when we are tying two surfaces. When you're tying two surfaces, it means that relative motion between the two surfaces is not allowed. There is perfect addition. So one surface is independent, the other is dependent. Master surface means independent surface. So we will choose surface. And usually the part which is stiffer will be the master. So we have to choose the outer surface of the cylinder, but that is not visible to us. So there is this option. If you look at the top, it says create a display group. If I click on this and I go to part instances, I can say remove part 2 or replace part 2. When we are doing this, just for visualization, we can remove one part or the other. So now we have access to my part which I want the master surface to be. I say done and choose the slave surface. Okay, so I go to the same one and I part 1 replace. Now I have access to my surface area. I say choose and I say done. So now my parts have been tied. If you see inside, you should see yellow dots. It means that the tying has been done successfully. I can go back and I say I want both of them. I want to visualize. Okay. Okay. This views, we can draw the wireframe views. We can draw other type of views. So if I make the wireframe view, I can see which surface has been tied. Okay. Now let us apply the load. Load can be of two types. According to Abaqus, boundary condition is also load, and load in the like you imagine traction is also load. Okay. So there are many options. Let us look at some simple. I want to put pressure. I say continue. I will choose the surface and I will say done. It is asking for magnitude. I am saying -1. This is -1 megapascal because the modulus has been expressed in megapascals. Okay. And the other surface, let us put a boundary condition. Let us put a displacement and we'll put it to be 0. Done. U1, U2, U3 rotation. So I have welded. All the 6 degrees of freedom are constrained on one face, and on the other face we are applying some load. Okay. The final task is to mesh. So how meshing works in Abaqus is that first you will seed. To seed means that at all the outer boundaries you are going to issue the starting points, and the meshing is going to happen outwards, from outwards inwards. So let's see how it works. The first option is create a seed. So do you want to? Yes, I want to do. So I select, I say done. It will ask me what is the approximate size. Approximate size means what is the approximate size of a face of an element. I say 0.05. I say okay. So you can see these white lines. These are going to be all my starting points for the meshing, and throughout all the external surfaces it has done this for me. It has created these surfaces. Okay. Depending on whether I want fine or coarse mesh, I just have to change the seed size. So if let's say I want a slightly coarse mesh, so let's put 0.1 and say apply. See, now it has become slightly, the white dots are away from each other. I say okay. Now this fourth one is assign mesh controls. I will select everything. It is going to ask me what type of elements do I want. Do I want hex or do I want tet or hex? So different analysis require different. If my geometry is simple, we should opt for X. If there are circular surfaces, then we should opt for tet. Tet will give you slightly higher values of stress, but it is much easier to mesh using tet. I say okay, and then I choose this one. Select the parts to be meshed. I say done. Now it will create the mesh. Also, there are some specialized software for meshing. So you could use that software and you could export your mesh. Abaqus will give you only very basic features for meshing. If your part is complex or if you want better mesh, then you have to choose some other software. So my meshing has been done. It started from the outer surface and then meshed everywhere. Now, once everything is done, the only thing left for us is to go to jobs, right click, create, name the job. Let us call this mechanics of composites demo. And I say continue. Now it will ask me how much memory do I want to give? Or if I have a multiple core system, how many cores do I allow Abaqus to use? Or the precision, do I want 8 places of decimal or 16? So we usually go for 8. If I have a multiple core, I will choose multiple core and I will usually give it 4 and 2. And I say okay. So now my job is created. Now if I right click and if I hit submit, then my job will start running and my FE analysis is complete. Then I only have to explore the result file. So due to lack of time, I am stopping here. We will continue our discussion on how to use this software and more advanced features specific to composite materials in the next few classes. Any questions about the Abaqus analysis that I just demonstrated?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you please upload a separate video regarding this demo, because when many steps are missing because of the internet delay.
This will be uploaded now. We have recorded it, so it will be uploaded. This video
So
will
there
be
will
uploaded.
not be any delay in the video, or
Normally
there will
not.
still be delay.
Normally not. But I
Okay,
must
sir.
also say this is a very popular software. There are extremely large number of very good YouTube videos and blogs and forums where all of this will be demonstrated.
Yes, sir, many videos are available in YouTube only. Gone
So
through that.
let us do something. I will upload this video. If there are some problems, I will take screenshot of every step and I will share with you some of them.
Yes,
Okay?
sir, that will be better, sir. Okay, okay, sir.
Okay. Any other question? FE analysis is a very useful skill to have if you're looking for a core job. As soon as they say the profile is design and it is in the context of solid mechanics, then 99 times out of 100, they are using some or the other FE software. It's a good skill to have. Yes. Okay, any other question? Otherwise, we can wind this lecture up. Dhruvil and Rahul, please stay back. We will need to talk. Okay, any other question or can we close this meeting?